Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spaniola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mystery of life. I'm your host, Carmen Spaniola, joining you from the lands of the Insilkshin-speaking peoples of the Okanagan Nations on our small farm just outside of a small town known as Summerland, BC. Have you ever met somebody and after just like a little while of talking to them, you're like, why aren't they famous? Are they famous? That's how I felt when I first met my guest today, Dionne Grayman, author of the forthcoming book, I Call My Own Name, a homegirl's lyrical memoir of healing, hip-hop, and holy reclamation, which is now available for pre-order from Ninth House Press. I should say I felt it as soon as I read her submission. Even if I didn't understand a reference, there was a lyrical rhythm that it was propulsive. It just kept pulling, propelling, moving me forward through the pages. And I just think it was the power and the undeniable warmth of her voice that kind of just cut through my mental chatter and quelled something in me. I was able to be immersed instantly into her world, and I really liked it. To me, some of the most engrossing books are when it's autobiography, but it reads very cinematic. I don't know if I just have, maybe this is part of my very visual thinking or, a propensity towards a clairvoyant kind of quality, but being able to see the scenes flashing before my eyes, I find just like a really pleasurable read. And I like inhabiting Dionne's world, which is what I think makes a great memoir, isn't it? It's such a pleasure to inhabit other worlds and see how we're so different and yet so similar. That's what I think makes a good memoir. It makes memoir like a beautiful and connective part of the human experience. This feeling that there's very high contrast between Dionne's world and mine, but they do coexist and they overlap and they're mutually informed and they're sometimes similar in very important ways. And the ways in which we are different are instructive and help me grow. And that expands the possibilities of my world. Her growth and expansion makes my own more possible. Right? So this is basically how we grow our empathy, right? We immerse ourselves in each other's lives and we find those important connection points while also uplifting and highlighting how our differences in experience are so critical to understand. I love the poignance and the intimacy of that. I just love how it makes me feel. It makes me feel happy to be human, to know that Dionne and I coexist and we can collaborate and we can celebrate each other's ways of being in the world. And I'm just super excited to have her book on my shelf, and I'm super excited for you to meet her. So please enjoy this heart-opening conversation with author and educator Dionne Grayman. So Dionne, what identities do you lead with?
Daughter, sister, mother, Brooklyn girls, big for me. Hip hop, head, house head, educator, Black boy whisperer. I have an inner middle school boy that just he pops out every now and again. Usually inappropriately, but always it's a good time. But you never know what's gonna happen. But yeah, an auntie, I think, mother, sister, daughter, auntie, and Nana, because I do have my son's son, but Black woman, yeah, a person who is learning her own divinity I think that's the one that I'm leading with now. It's like, oh, you really are divine. You really are divine. That's a new one that I'm waking up with and waking up to. And that's the one that is scary because I'm acknowledging it really for the first time. But the scary part, I'm not a roller coaster rider. I do not like roller coasters, but it's that I'm going to get on this thing and I'm going to be terrified. And the terrifying part is also going to be like the thing that makes it the most fun. And I think that's that my own divinity as it's terrifying, and yet it's the thing that's been the most fun, is the identity that I'm holding the closest right now.
Mm. We're here today to talk about your book, your forthcoming title with Ninth House Press, coming out November 4th, 2026. Let's start with the name. What is your book's title and what's the story
Ooh.
behind the title?
Oh, the story is so delicious. The title of my book, the name of my book is I Call My Own Name. I actually texted the person who said it last night to say on November 4th, this is what we're going to be doing. Bell Hooks, her transition was difficult for me in a lot of ways. I have a colleague and a really good friend, Angela Polite, who talks about words in my mouth. And Bell Hooks put words in my mouth. She's a Libra, I'm a Libra. I always imagined that I would get the opportunity to meet her, not like, I met Angela Davis and was appropriately tongue-tied, but just was like I wanted to do that with Bell Hooks. But I went to, when after she transitioned, Mark Lamont Hill organized a symposium in Philadelphia. I live in New York and in Philadelphia. But it was the start of my I can do brave things. And so I decided that I would go to Philadelphia by myself. I wouldn't ask anybody and wait to, and then not go because other people weren't going. Um, I took the the train and a bus from the train station and went to this church in Philadelphia that was filled with people who came to celebrate the life of Bell Hooks. I had been in a fellowship that was online because of COVID, and I met this woman. We're in a similar field in education, and she was presenting at a conference, and I was telling her I was going to this symposium. She was like, "Oh, let me switch my flight and I'll meet you there." I'm there, she comes, and while I'm there, I run into someone I hadn't seen in like 10 years. We were in this group called Mocha Moms together. She's a New York Times bestselling author. Her audience is like young adolescent or young adolescent women. And the three of us were talking in the symposium and learning. We decided to go out to eat. We're going to catch our train. My friend lives in Boston. I'm coming back to New York, and my other friend was driving back to New Jersey. The conversation at dinner ran so long, we missed the train. And so my friend was like, "Well, we'll go to Jersey. You can pick up the train there, and Dionne, you can get to." I was like, "Oh, great." We're in the car and we're talking kids and work and all the things, and invariably the conversation turns to sex because we're going to talk about sex. And the conversation talked to self-pleasuring, and my friend from Boston, Camilla, says, "I am so good to my own self sometimes that I call my own name." And I was like, I'm writing that down. That is going to be the title of the first book that I write, because that is badassery to the next level. I wrote it down. I was like, if you're at this season in your life, like, we use the language of like midlife, but if you're 45, 50, if you've never called your own name, now you have to call your own name. Like, you have to learn how to call your own name. And I think that's so powerful, for women who not only forgotten to call their own name, but forgotten what their voices sound like. And tied to this idea of self-pleasure, like I know I'm going to play
I'm crying.
like
People can't see,
I
but I'm just sitting
know.
here weeping. It's
Because
so
I
beautiful.
mean, right? It really is. It's like I get to call my own name, especially like if you've had the kids and partners, and it's taken me. It's been a journey for me to remember I forgot how to call my own name, right? I'm a mother of three. I enjoyed every single second of my children's childhood. I'm privileged that I got to give them the childhood that they wanted, to the extent that I could. Like, my children, their lives were good. Their lives are good. And that was a sacrifice, but it was one, that I would do again and again and again. And I call their names with a smile in my voice every single time, and forgot to do that for myself. And I think I bought into the lie that it would be selfish to do that for myself. I'm really grateful that my daughter is 21. She's my youngest, that she gets to see me do it, so that it won't even be something that she'll learn how to do. She'll already she's al- my, let me re, she's already doing it, because she sees me doing it,
Mhm.
right? And yeah, and there's the healing forward, and then the healing backwards. My mom moved to Charlotte a couple of months ago at 70 something years old, decided she wanted something new. And I mean, if that's not calling your own name, then what is?
Mm. Mhm. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Hip hop um is the first place I found, the second place I found my voice. My mom tells the story that I learned how to read when I was 3 and I was writing at like 4. So I've always made up stories. I've always had this beautiful imagination where I could see things and write things. And I think I was in middle school. There was a radio station in New York City, a college radio station that would play hip hop, which is something that you could only hear in New York City at that time on cassette tapes, or if you went to parties. And I wasn't old enough for either. And I found this radio station, and it came on Sunday nights at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'd have to sneak to listen. And the confidence, the bravado, the swag, the power that was coming out of um, my radio, through these voices that were telling stories, not just of the places where they lived and who they were, but who they imagined themselves to be, and all of their power, all of their skills, all of their magic, all of their wonder. Um, and all of the voices were male, and one voice, Shirok, she was in a group called Funky 4+1. I was like, "Ooh, I want to do that." And I started by writing down the rhymes that I heard. I would write them down, and then I would switch them up. And then I started writing my own, and I had books and books. I wanted to be an MC. I had books and books and books and books, and I was so good, right? But I'm this nerdy black girl that wears glasses, and no one knew about that side of me. But I knew I was good. I was good because I had been listening, and I knew I was good. And then around 16, I was like, I really want to do it. Found a friend, actually my best friend, my oldest friend, but her heart wasn't really in it like mine was. What being an MC taught me really about voice. Really, because as an MC, you only call your own name. You're not calling anybody else's name. And if it is, it's to talk about how they are so not like you, and that makes them whack. But you call your own name. And I was at a meeting today in Manhattan and was coming home. It's a beautiful day. Spring is here. And I was like, I want to hear Rough Riders. Someone mentioned this MC Dragon. And then I was like, oh, that means I get to listen to Eve. I get to listen to EVE. And I'm walking down the east side of Manhattan in the 80s. It's like an affluent neighborhood. And I'm walking down like this, you know, saying Eve's verse. And it's just, there's just something about hip hop that allows you to connect to your own power. That as a woman, that as a girl, we know that we don't, we're taught to believe that we don't have power, or that our power comes through permission and connection to men. Being able to hold my own mic and write my own rhymes and really stand my own ground and like have a stance. Hip hop gave that to me and continues to give it to me. If I'm introducing myself to someone, they'll say, tell us something you don't know about yourself. And I'm like, I keep a hot 16 in my pocket. I am always ready, right? And I'm always ready. Like I'm always ready. Yeah, there's
Mm.
something about that just is like, oh, of course I call my own name. You don't even think twice about it.
Mm. Your book proposal floated to the top of the slush pile. Like our inbox got totally slammed with submissions for Ninth House Press. I opened yours and was like, who is this? What is this? What is this about? And all of us, Terne, Therese, and I were just gripped by your voice. I think that's like the
Wow.
one note I put. We had like an Excel spreadsheet, and I was like, voice, all caps. Like your writing is
Wow.
so strong and clear, but also very unique. Like it's lyrical and rhythmic in a way that you don't often see in, I guess, what I'm going to call like traditional publishing industry that's like white literary
Mm,
blah 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 blah,
mm,
right? It
mm,
it it just it's somewhere
mm.
between poetry and prose and rhymes,
Wow.
and also, I think I told you this when we first met. It reminded me of that Netflix show, The Get Down, that was like
Mm.
about or the origins. I was like, this is like a script. It's like I can see these characters on the page. So, who
Wow.
are some of your influences along with Bell Hooks and Eve? Who are the matriarchs and the ancestors that you're channeling in your book?
Always the Toni Morrison.
Mm,
Now I'm gonna cry. She writes in these long, dense, my friend Ann uses the term thickly packed. There's so many words that she puts into one sentence. And I'm an English teacher by trade. And so, like, I can hear myself going run on, but you need all of that in the one sentence because she gives you so much. Like they came from Mobile, right? Like,
mm,
she gives me back pieces of like it's the Toni Morrison's impact on me is I've read I I joke with my family and say like I read Toni Morrison for fun. like
mm,
like like that's my flex. I read Toni, that's my intellectual flex. I read Toni Morrison for fun. The first book that I read was The Bluest Eye. It took me a while to realize that it took me a while to even recognize and be aware of the the sexual violence and the violation of this little person, this precious girl child, because that was so far from my own experience that it took me a while. And I think I was in middle school. My parents were revolutionaries, and so when I was in like fifth grade, I think Roots came out, the
mm.
book, and my dad was like, "This,
Mm.
you're reading this." And I'm like, I just went to the library and got all my Laura, my little house on the, I had the whole set, but I was going to read the whole set for the summer. Like I was set. I was like, oh my God, I got all the books. I'm going to read all the little, and my dad was like, you're reading this. And there was
Mm,
no, I'm going to read it with you. So even with
mm,
Toni Morrison, I didn't have anybody to talk me through what I was reading, but there was a line where Mrs. Breedlove says, "Get him, Jesus," as she's talking about her husband. He's drunk and he's stumbling close to the stove. And I remember laughing, and I'm like, you can laugh in the middle of this nightmare like there's still, yeah. And then my dad gave me right after Roots, he gave me The Fire Next Time. I think that had just come out, and he was like, Baldwin, read. And I was
mm.
like, oh, okay. And I I love James Baldwin. I love James Baldwin. Toni Morrison is my everything.
Mm.
She's the reason that I even when I choose suffering and don't write, and I've done that for long stretches of my life. My North Star was always, if I can publish one book that's in service to Toni Morrison. So Toni Morrison. I'm also going to say Bebe Moore Campbell. I used to love her books. I found them as an adult. She's the mother of Maya Campbell, who used to be on a television series. She was the first person that like in the public sphere that when we thought about mental illness. I
Mm.
loved her books. Terry McMillan's Disappearing Act. I mean, that introduced me to what does love and romance look like for, for young Black people, for a young Black woman finding herself. And of course, Alice Walker. Yes, The Color Purple, but also I love Temple of My Familiar, and I know like most people do not. There's also a way that Alice Walker writes, and I love, I love that Alice Walker and Toni Morrison were in the same space at the same time. And there was Bell Hooks, and there was Angela Davis and Gloria Naylor. So Women of Brewster
Mm.
Place also. And she was the keynote speaker at my college graduation.
Oh,
So and for the mother of us all, it would be Zora Neale Hurston. If you put me on an album, if you put me on an island, I would need Dust Tracks on the Road, Sula by Toni Morrison, Temple of My Familiar, and Michael Jackson's first album, and I'd be content. I'd be and a bottle of rosé,
amazing.
and I'd be content.
That's great. So tell us more about the journey you're taking readers on. Like, what is your book
Mm.
about? What's the journey we go on with you?
The book is how I got here, and I think here from the time that I released it to Ninth House Press to now, I too have fucked up. I too have made mistakes. I too have failed spectacularly. I too have done things I never would have imagined myself doing. I too have loved men that were not worthy of my love. I too have silenced myself when my volume should have been turned up all the way to 10. I too have. And it's also how I got here is in recognition that in all the ways that I thought about myself that did not speak, that did not sing, that did not call my name, I understood that some of that, most of it was put on me,
Mm.
right? It's the conditioning, right? It's the, you need to fit into this definition because I can only see this much of you. And so I'm going to require you to shrink to so that I can see you. And yeah, it's those things. And it's also, and even so, and still, the me that was calling my own name was there the whole time. I've told stories about myself a billion and one ways that had me as the villain, as the victim, either as the villain or the victim or both. To look at them through, to go, well, if I call my own name, how does this story get retold? It's like, oh, okay. So yes, I was a mom at 20, and yes, I was unmarried, and yes, my boyfriend was a part of the epidemic of violence that attended the crack epidemic, and he was killed when I was 6 months. And yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, I'm a statistic, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. One day I was like, hold on, hold on, hold on. Actually, it was a friend of mine who was talking about a young woman that he dated when he was in college. And he said she had 2 kids and was on the dean's list. Of course, I dated her. She's one of the smartest people I knew. And I was like, wait a minute. So yes, I went back to school. My boyfriend was killed in September. My son was born in November. I was back I was in community college in January, and I did a year and a half at community college. Won a writing contest. I forgot about that. With Professor Alan Kay. I hope that he is still alive and well. And then I went to Brooklyn College. I went to a 4-year college. I was an English and journalism major. I was a double major. Would have to sometimes bring my son to class because I sometimes had to bring my son to class. And I graduated summa cum laude. But I didn't, but that's not how I was telling the story. And people were fine with me telling the story as victim. People were fine with that. I was fine with it. And then it was, oh, but if I'm calling my own name, it's like, graduated 3.8 with a baby, yeah, it's like, oh, if you call your own name, then you tell, there's a way you tell the story. There's a way you have to tell the story when you call your own name. And it can't be through anybody else's warped, distorted, diminished experiences, right? Or limitations or through anyone else's ignorance. You can only call your name and tell your story through your power, right? And so yeah, the book is about how I realize if I'm gonna call my own name, then call my own name, and retell the stories to myself that I had been telling to myself.
Mm.
I start from like one of my earliest memories of feeling like I failed. I failed my sister, I failed my mom. And then, I had enough wherewithal to call for help. I had enough wherewithal to make sure my sister was good. I had enough wherewithal to make sure my mom was okay, and to reassure my mom, and to make sure my mom was good. When you can call your own name, you can only think about yourself in love. Like you can only imagine yourself through love. Of course. I mean, when you call your own name, you have the presence of an 80-year-old demented leader. You- when you call your own name, you you show up, right? Not in delusion, but you show up like, oh, well, okay, because that's a person that calls their own name, and I'm like, oh, okay. And take up all the space, and take up all the space, and blow winds through people's lives when you call your own name. Not claiming that energy, but I'm like, oh, okay, got it, got it. Be a force, got it, got it.
Mm.
Be but for good, because whatever that is, be a force for good, so that the Pope doesn't have to talk about you every single day.
Right.
So you don't have to catch Pope smoke, because who wants Pope smoke? Like what? That's a direct line to that. Hello, yeah. Listen. Mm-hmm. I'm I need you to hit that button real soon. And we just gonna go all the way down to the depths. Like what? With the Pope? Okay. All right. I guess. So yeah, call your name like that. Like call your name
Yeah.
when you could be like, I actually can't argue theology with the Pope.
There are many selves. There are many yous that
Mm,
you are calling,
mm,
many slices of life, many, many versions of you, many
mm,
updates on who you thought you were in this book. So,
mm,
which
mm.
earlier version of yourself was most healed in the process of writing this work?
My
And
God.
what becomes possible for you now that she has been given voice and
Mm,
she is entering the world or re-entering the world, being called, calling
mm,
herself forth like this?
mm, mm. It would have to be 20-year-old me. My sister, Carmen, like I'm gonna send it to you. I'm sending it to you now. My sister sent a picture of me last Friday, the day that I needed to get the contract back. Mind you, I just told my mom and my sister like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, this thing is moving pretty fast. I probably should tell them before they walk past the store and be like, that's right. So I probably want to say something. I probably do. And and so I did. And then last Friday, Kimberly, my middle sister, she sends a picture of a young woman feeding a baby in a high chair. I don't recognize her like at all. But I'm looking at the baby, and I'm like, oh, that baby is so cute. That's such a cute baby. And then I was like, he looks like Silas. That's my youngest son. And then I was like, oh no, he looks like Sean. And I was like, oh, that is Sean. I was like, oh shit, that's me. And the tears, the
Mm.
tears, the tears. Because I'm looking at her, and I'm like, she had no idea of what she was doing. She had no idea, like none. And she was terrified, terrified. we didn't have the language for grief that we do now. I didn't have, she didn't have time to grieve. She had to raise a baby and she had to finish college so she can, build this life that was not the life that she thought she was gonna. So every single day was terrifying, every single day. And she couldn't even name the terror. If you say it out loud, then it becomes real. And then what do you do in the aftermath of real? So she couldn't even name it. So this healed her. When I looked at the picture and realized that that was me, I was like, oh, you've been here the whole entire time. Like, you've been here. You're the one who said, oh no, you're going to call my name. Do you know what I just did? Do you know what I did? Do you know how I made you possible? Not you going to. And I've been waiting and I've been waiting and I've been waiting and I've been waiting and I've been waiting. And so, yeah, this is definitely 20-year-old Dionne, because 20-year-old Dionne, I don't know if I ever told my oldest son, Sean, my firstborn, this, but I would say to people, there are huge parts of the first year of his life that I just, there are snapshots, right? There are, like really big moments, but so many of the small moments, because you can't hold everything. And I didn't know I didn't know what to hold. I didn't know what to hold. I didn't know what to hold. So this is that 20-year-old Dionne. She's the one that reminds me to walk down the street listening to hip hop, saying the words out loud. That's her. That's her. She's so she's so proud. She's so proud of us. She's so proud of us. I'm so grateful for her. I'm so grateful for her.
When you think about the readers, who is this book for? Like, which readers do you think are going to resonate the most or get the most out of your book?
I'd be dishonest if I didn't say, of course, as a Black woman, I'm thinking about other Black women who have also arrived at this point, not just who am I, but how did I get here? How did I lose myself? Going back to November 24, going back to August 24, and the feeling of, it's our time. Finally, we finally get to live. We finally get to, and the joy of former Vice President Harris' campaign, and seeing ourselves, and the collectives and coalitions that gathered around, some of the difficult conversations that had to be had about, position and policy, and continuation of, of a boys club. But the overall energy was just, oh my God, it's we finally, it's our chance, it's our time now to have that dash the way that it was. I am not, like, I don't doom scroll. I turned the television off at 4 o'clock, and I was in my bed at 7, and that's unheard of. And when I say I'm a Brooklyn girl, like, if you know Brooklyn girl, scared is not something that we are, and yet the waves of fright that were unfamiliar, but also ancestral deep, the way my DNA was like, no, we know what this is, and the way I was able to find a community of Black women, and like maybe that Thursday, and they did a lot of somatic work, and I was like, okay, like, okay, even in the, the collective, the group, the national group chat that was, we not doing none of this, y'all got it. You know what, y'all got it. That's who I thought it would be, the, over 600,000 Black women who have been forced out of jobs because of policy, the food insecure, like all of the ways in which all of the things, just conspired to crash down at one time. And I thought it was that women, and then I thought it would be like women my age. And I was on Martha's Vineyard this summer, 2 summers ago, in an art gallery with my friend Felicia, who is a committed extrovert, and I am a dedicated introvert. And I'm like, there are a lot of people, and I just need to be out of energy for just a second. Like, could we just, she's outside, and she's like, ah! I'm like, everything inside me is screaming. And I'm like, can we just, so we go into this art gallery so I can get myself together. And this little girl comes running in, and I'm like, I would have dressed my daughter in the same way. I would have had the same outfit on. And then a woman comes in, and I'm like, oh, that must be the mom. We're chatting it up, and I'm like, oh, my daughter, she's at Howard, and she's in college. I'm so proud of her, yada yada yada. And I'm looking at this woman, and then I start hearing questions to ask her, and I just start asking questions. This complete stranger, I ask her about her marriage. I was like, is that your man outside? Is that your husband outside? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, how are y'all? And she looks, and she goes, this is a reset for us. And I was like, okay. Another daughter comes in, and I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, that's the boss of everybody. And she says, yes. And she says she has Tourette's. I'm embarrassed. That becomes a whole conversation. I keep talking to this woman, Carmen. We're in the middle of an art gallery. People are coming in. Felicia has gone outside. The little girls are playing under a table. She says something about being disconnected from her grandmother, even though she sends her grandmother money, and that she was mad at her grandmother because her mother died. And in the middle of this art gallery, because I said, like, where do you live? She said, I live in Connecticut, but I'm from Baltimore. And I'm like, Baltimore, right? We know what happened in Baltimore. Everybody saw The Wire. Like, we know what happened in Baltimore. And I was like, okay, right. So raised by the grandmother. Okay, okay. She says, my mother died. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. And her expression didn't change. And I'm like, oh my God. And she says, and she said she was in the hospital by herself for 2 weeks. I was like, wait, like, what happened? Her grandmother called her younger sister to say that the mother had called. She made a decision to end her life.
Mm.
And the grandmother called the younger sister instead of calling the older sister.
Mm.
The younger sister calls the older sister. The older sister, the woman I'm talking to, calls her mom. And her mom shares her decision. And she said, I was so angry. And she said, and then I thought about all the times and how long we've been doing this. And she
Mm.
said, I told her, it's okay.
Mm.
It's okay. And she said, and I was angry, but I said, it's okay. The next day, she wakes up thinking that her mother had transitioned. The phone rings, and it's her mother
Oh.
telling her what she planned to do, and that apparently it didn't work. And she's like, you called me last night. We spoke. The mother didn't remember. They had a moment of reconnection, healing, real forgiveness. The mother died either that night or the next morning.
Oh. Like naturally or of her own hand?
Natural,
What?
naturally.
What? What? Wow.
And as she's telling the story, like, I'm like tears are streaming down my face, and she's stoic. And I was like, oh. And so I say to her, I was like, I'm so sorry. And I said, can I hug you? And the minute I touched her, she broke.
Mm.
Like I had to catch her, and she's sobbing. The little girls are terrified because mommy's crying. Why is this lady making mommy cry? The gallery owner comes, and she gets them, and she takes them outside to their dad and Felicia. And there are other black women in the art gallery. There's no gawking, even though we're in the middle of a gallery, and she's in full breakdown. and there's no gawking, but there's you can feel the love. And she was in her 30s, and so I was like, so I'm thinking about her. And then there's a principal at a school in a neighborhood that's been the target of immigration officials here in the
Mm.
city, and it's an elementary school, and it's a neighborhood where a lot of the families come from countries that speak Spanish, and then or from places in China, and there's a lot of fear
Mm.
in the neighborhood. And this principal is outspoken, and she's unafraid, and she was causing harm to her staff because her expectations were on 10, and rightfully so, but the support they felt that they were receiving was on 3. And it was a really difficult conversation to have because I had to talk across race,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to talk across lived experience. We got the gift of a small kitchen fire that my colleague and I, no one was hurt. And I saw this principal and her staff spring into action. Everything worked like clockwork. And so I was able to hold that mirror up for her, say, hey, right? And then the disconnect between that and that is you making a decision. But look, and she would read the book. So I'm grateful um for that experience, because it allowed me to let some bias go. It allowed me to expand my thinking, and it allowed me to be in new truths, right? And I have this new amazing badass um woman, who as a school leader is amazing and phenomenal and incredible. And because she started calling her own name, the staff is experiencing that as a result. And she's the the speak of open to feedback. She's receptive,
Mm.
and she trusts
Mm.
that I don't judge.
Mhm.
And so I think people, period, but I think mostly women who have felt judged, who have felt I can't be these things because of what's put on me. I think like it's for all of us. And um, I'm I'm really humbled, and I'm really humbled by that. And I'm grateful for that, because I'm also imagining the like these kinds of cross conversations happening where we can fuck the patriarchy together. You know what I mean? And whatever the opposite of Handmaid's Tale is, that we do that together. Because I can't do any of that,
Yeah.
but that we do that together. Like, let's make dystopia sexy. If dystopia is going to be a thing, let's make it sexy. Let's make it cute. Let's put red lipstick on it. Let's put on a Beyonce track if we're going to do it. But let's do it together. Let's be clear about the lies that we've all been told about, we bring forth life. Like, we are the most divine things on this planet. Whether, that's a choice we make or not, doesn't change the fact, right? That, and even thinking like, expansively across gender, because I don't want to leave, anyone out. I'm always going to center my lived experience because that's healthy. And I can hold space and really be in community and be curious about, other folk and their lived experiences, and like, what are the places of that we share. And yes, conflict, but maybe not rupture, like, okay,
Mm.
like disagreement, but maybe not disavowal,
Mm.
maybe not disappearance, and maybe not denial, right? Like, definitely not delusion. Let's be with what is, and then let's see what we make of it, in all the ways that Toni Morrison and Alice Walker and Lucille Clifton and Nikki Giovanni created these worlds for us to imagine, because we don't have to, we don't have to do it this way, and I think we get to have these conversations. And if my book can help, if my book can be a part of a conversation, like, that would be so dope. That bigger than I imagine. That bigger than I imagine.
Mm. Dionne, how do you cope with grief and rage?
Mm. In my family, my dad's side is Caribbean. My mom's side is Southern, and her dad's family were Native Americans. Left the Midwest, went to Detroit, and started intermarrying with Black folk. All of those people, places, joy lives at the center of everything. Non-negotiable. I don't have any other way to be other than joy always, and grief. Yeah, right. So in the religious tradition that I grew up in, like there are songs like "It'll Be All Over in the Morning," "Facing the Rising Sun," like it. Yeah, because it's always been, and there's always been joy. We've always laughed. We've always danced. My sister and I, Kimberly, will hoot and holler at a funeral. To the point where my mother will sometimes, and we're adults, she won't let us sit together because we'll shoulders shaking. If you're sitting behind us, you think that we're like convulsing with tears, and we are, but like we're also trying to stifle laughter. When my dad transitioned 10 years ago, my sister came over with my nephews. I have four nephews. We cried, but 2 seconds in, the jokes were already flowing, and my daughter came out of her room. She's a Leo, so the Leos. Both of my sisters are Leos also, so it's funny, it's ironic that my only daughter is a Leo. She comes out of the room, she's like, "Why are you laughing? He just died." And we're like, "Cause we're gonna laugh, because it's funny. Like, she just said some funny shit, and I'm gonna laugh." um but the grief, joy and grief live together, live side by side. That's how I was raised. The rage part, my dad was a Taurus, and his anger, legendary, like legendary. I don't know that he ever raged, and maybe he did, but the anger was so I'm comfortable with anger. I mean, and like I'm not, I'm a Libra, so I always want peace and harmony. But I've seen anger, so like I'm not afraid of anger. Anger is constructive. Yeah, anger can be destructive, but anger is also constructive, because anger is, this thing is frustrating me so much that there's an injustice. Anger and injustice go hand in hand. Anger and inequity go hand in hand. I don't often rage. I don't often rage. I I live in New York and I drive. I I don't often rage, and when I do, my anger is righteous. My rage is righteous. My rage is just. I don't rage blindly, because I'm very aware of, you can't an apology won't take everything away. Just because you say sorry doesn't mean. And that's what hip hop is for, and that's what lifting weights are for, and that's what running is for, and that's what amazing, incredible sex is for, and that's what, girl, like, that's like, like this mother, like, that's there. I have outlets. I have outlets for rage. I have outlets for rage, and when it's threatened to consume me, because I'm human, I'll see, I'll cook dinner for my son. I'll FaceTime with my daughter. I'll put on Beyonce. I'll put on Mary J. Like, there's music. I'll watch Zootopia for the 100th time, or Bad Guys 2, which is now my new favorite jam. I know what to do with it, so it can't live. It can't live. The other side of rage is depression, and I was experiencing depression this summer. And, you know, just like with rage, you have a choice to make. Like, I met this Black woman who was a principal, and she talked about going and like being hospitalized, and it didn't dawn, like it took a whole year to realize, oh, she committed herself. And I didn't know you could commit. I know you could be committed. I didn't know you could commit yourself. And most of July, I was like, you have a choice. You could commit yourself. You could. And I knew I was going back to Martha's Vineyard. I knew it was going to be the water does everything. I was like, you could, or you just got to get to August. You just got to get to August. You just got to get to August. And I think it's the same thing with rage. It's this too will pass. You just got to get to, whatever point. I have enough of me. I have enough of myself to know that this too will pass. It'll be all over in the morning. And maybe it's not tomorrow morning. Maybe it's Friday morning. Maybe it's Saturday morning. And if I can't, I know who to call. You know, I know who to call. I know who to call if I need the bitch, if you don't. Um, or I have actually maybe like six people like that. Maybe. Or and I know who to call for the oh, girl, I'm gonna send you, girl, did you, or did you get the flowers I sent you? Yeah, it's that. Yeah, yeah. And I have cats. And I have cats. I'm lucky to have a cat, and I have a cat that loves to cuddle. It is almost impossible to stay enraged with a cat who's like, lay down, it's time to cuddle. It's almost impossible.
Well, I gotta say, Dionne, I don't really know why I've cried through so much of listening to you today, but there was, as I said, there was something about your submission, your book proposal, and the
Mm.
story, the chapters you sent, that I was like, I know this, she's not talking to me. I know this book isn't for me, but it is, and
But
she
it is.
is. It is,
Yes.
and she is. And
Yes.
it's like I can't really explain it, but when I sent it to a colleague who invited me to be interviewed in her magazine, and I was like, yeah, I would love that, but you know who you need to hear? I have this author. Her book's called I Call My Own Name, a homegirl's lyrical memoir of healing, hip hop, and holy reclamation. And she responded immediately with, that title is dripping with life force
Mm.
energy. And I was like,
Mm.
wait till you meet her.
My gosh.
Wait till you meet her. And
My
there's
gosh.
something very corrective and healing about hearing you call your own name and call forth all of the earlier versions of you into, it's like you're drawing them from the past and also standing in the future, calling all parts of you to you. And it's really beautiful. And it's a very corrective experience for my own
Mm.
20-year-old, my own,
My
single mom at
gosh.
28-year-old, my own, all these other
Mm.
parts. So I cannot wait to have your book in my hot little hands. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here, Dionne. I appreciate your time
Thank
today.
you, Carmen. Thank you. This is like we're gonna that we get to have I get to have these conversations with you is just is wild. It's this whole thing is wild. I already adore you. Like I can't wait to be sitting at a bar with you and be loud.
Yes. Yes. Isn't she so warm and wise and fun? Like, why isn't she famous yet, right? She's been busy. That's why she's been busy, but let's make her famous. Because what a powerhouse, what a charmer, what a charismatic human. Dionne's book, I Call My Own Name, is now available for pre-order from Ninth House Press, and I highly recommend you purchase the Power Reader Bundle. You'll get her book and all 6 titles from the debut catalog, plus free shipping and 15% off. So that's all the titles in the debut catalog from Ninth House Press
free shipping, 15% off. And the books are going to arrive in early November, just in time for gift giving season. So read them all, gift the ones you know others will love. You can pre-order now at ninthhousepress.com. In that bundle will be my own book on contact nutrition. So this is my third book after The Spirited Kitchen and Spells for the Apocalypse. It is not in the witchcraft genre this time. I do have other witchcraft and magical, spiritual leading books that I still would like to publish, but this is the one that both my agent and I, like way back in 2021, 2022, before The Spirited Kitchen came out, we're like, okay, but this is really your work. Anyway, my third book is in my other wheelhouse, which is attachment and trauma healing. Though I will say there are still some animistic and spiritual parts because, of course, I shouldn't say of course, because a lot of people don't know this. Attachment to our ancestors and to our family of origin, the natural world, are massively underestimated as key relationships and, if you want to use the jargon, co-regulators in our lives. So there is that piece. Anyway, my book, How to Connect, Build Strong Bonds and Deep Connections Through Contact Nutrition, parenthesis, no matter your attachment style, trauma history, or neurotype, is also now available for pre-order through Ninth House Press. Now I'll say this. Ninth House Press has flat rate shipping, so that means if you just buy one book, the sticker shock can be a little intense. I mean, it's only $10 Canadian, but you know, that's almost 50% of the price of the book, right? So order more copies. Order more copies. As I said on Instagram, you know, either you're going to read this book and it's going to help improve your relationship, or you will come to recognize how subpar your relationship is. And I know you know 2 or 3 or 5 friends in subpar relationships. So you could also just purchase multiple copies. You will definitely have people you could gift it to. Anyway, your pre-order, it's kind of like pre-ordering a food box from a farmer. If you've ever done this, maybe there's a farmer who delivers at the farmer's market, the CSA box, right? Consumer Supported Agriculture. So you order your CSA at the beginning of the season so the farmer can buy seeds, and then they toil and tend, and you get the harvest a few months later, right? Well, Ninth House Press is a co-op, and that's how the books get to you, is through your pre-orders. So I cannot tell you how important your pre-orders are to the survival of the press, and also just how much they mean to us that you are part of the co-op movement, which is what you are when you support the co-op. So please consider purchasing the Power Reader bundle. Again, you get all 6 titles at a discount with free shipping. Read them all. Keep the ones you love, but gift the ones that best belong in the home of a friend. All right, so if you enjoyed this episode, remember, we're over here in the Numinous Network talking about topics like this every day. Things like spiritual growth, recovery from setback and failure, parenting and family relationships, finding spiritual sustenance amidst hardship. Like, we're witnessing each other through these events and stories. These come up in our live calls like every day. So you should come join us. Just try for a month. Gift yourself 1 month. Try out a couple calls. See if you like us. We are serving up contact nutrition in every session, especially somatics classes. You'll be in the care of myself or someone else very well trained in dosing the field with like therapeutic doses of kind eyes, vocal prosody, using mirror neurons to amplify a sense of safe touch, dropping into solidarity, dropping into the group, into like a comforting shared rhythm. So you get the feeling of going to therapy without going to therapy, if that makes sense. You get a sense of support and stability without being put on the spot, without forced sharing, without forced intimacy, definitely no surprise breakouts, and at a significantly reduced price than if you were trying to go to therapy every week. So it's the same politics as this podcast, but a more soothing vibe, hanging out with like-minded others over Zoom. You can learn more about the Numinous Network at carmenspagnola.com. CarmenSpagnola. Until next time, take care.